So, I know we were all expecting more Godwyn content in the DLC, but just like that diet I was starting this year, Miyazaki seems to have forgotten about our oddly damp looking Little Mermaid never-ending story mashup. Well, I seek to right this wrong today by cosplaying as Godwyn's off-brand Crucible Knights and taking out everyone who stole his spotlight. Now, I'm not saying the Death Knights were bad or anything, but I definitely think they're in the catacombs now for a reason. Incantations aren't the best, and weapons that scale off Faith, with Faith barely increasing the weapon damage, is, at best, mid. Watch as I go through each Remembrance boss and discover never-before-known things, like the stance damage on the Knight's Lightning Spear, what medium weight armor means, and how to use a weapon that is slower than 2 knives. As a quick aside, this is my first ever video, so if anything isn't up to par, either I'll be fixing it in later videos, or you can feel free to leave a comment on what you'd like to see or what you'd like me to fix. With that being said, I hope you enjoy my Death Knight run. As always, any good run has to start with one of 2 options: running to your death from a grafted scion, or actually fighting it. While I'm usually a subscriber to the first option, New Game Plus affords me the ability to absolutely bully this poor intro boss, and that's exactly what I did. There isn't too much to say here other than the fact that New Game Plus 1 grafted scion definitely didn't deserve to have his lunch money stolen the way that he did. Now, Margit is an amazing first boss, and that's because only 73% of players on Steam have beaten him. Not to say that gatekeeping a game is good or anything, but I definitely think if someone can't get through the staggered timing on his cane attacks and the sudden sweeping motions of his daggers and magical swords, that they probably would have put the controller down on most any of the later bosses. Either way, Margit is a staple in Elden Ring, and whether they designed the name Omen around the fact that you definitely would be seeing him later, or they just thought it was a cool name, it definitely still stands that, while easy, he's a good boss. In regards to the Death Knight build, Margit is the perfect boss to start really experimenting with the combination of close-range attacks and casting. The Knight's Lightning Spear is a wonderful attack for when Margit jumps back, and the heavier long half axe does wonders with a fully charged R2. And if you don't feel like casting, the Ash of War covers the distance easily, and with iframes as an added bonus. At the end of the day, the combination of casting and heavy attacks worked wonders, and the only issue was my own poor dodging ability. When I was first introduced to Godfrey as a boss, it was watching my friend summoning other players in a desperate attempt to get him to phase 2, let alone actually beating the boss. And when I first fought him, I certainly had issues as well. I mean, to start off, he's creepy, he has one too many axes, and I did not realize that running towards the fire-breathing dragon head was a better option than running away from it. Now, I'm pretty sure anyone who has played Elden Ring past their first attempt can kill Godfrey in their sleep now. It's just, he doesn't have a bad boss design. He just definitely has a reason for all of his daddy issues. Godric is pretty neutral to lightning damage, but his tornadoes cannot deflect my lightning spears, so I was able to maintain pretty good stance pressure on him even when he was flying in the sky, which was definitely nice. To be completely fair, it isn't really until Margit or so that New Game Plus starts catching up with the character's level, so this fight was overall easy for more than just build-related reasons. I won't lie, being able to close the distances that he often makes during his Stormcall attacks with the Ash of War was definitely a plus, and I'd say the fight was for sure fun, even if I'm not the most knowledgeable on his attacks. I don't like this cutscene, it is so creepy. Rennala's boss fight is more of a story than a fight, and it's a weird one. While I appreciate what they were going for, I have things to do, and feeling bad for Rennala's broken heart is not on the top of my list. Second phase was just as annoying as it usually is, though the water in the arena was definitely boosting my damage in a pleasant way. But overall, there isn't much to say about this boss fight. I appreciated using my long-range incantations, and I loved getting close to her with the Ash of War, seeing as she loves backing away so much. But other than having to deal with the annoying summons, there really wasn't much to say. Probably why Radagon left Ravana in the first place, if we're being honest. He isn't, because maybe he's too busy fighting the air, I guess. The Golden Vow really did stuff, you know? Starscourge Radahn is a boss that I bullied. Remember the first time you played the game, stepping out into the light of Glimgrave for the first time ever, and laying eyes on that shiny golden tree sentinel? Remember the confidence you had in beating that boss just to get absolutely ripped over and over and over again? And now that you're better, you killed a tree sentinel every single run? Yeah, that's me with Starscourge Radahn. Him and then pre-patch Consort Radahn killed me so many times that it is morally unacceptable for me to not beat him in every form as quickly as possible. Was this a fun fight? Definitely. I enjoyed the Lightning Spear when I had the space to do so, and closing gaps with the axe. While the boss definitely did some damage because of my inability to roll correctly, the full set of armor kept me from feeling the hurt too badly, and I was still able to secure the win without too much of an issue. If you're looking to play with the summons throughout the whole fight, the Lightning Spear and some distance will definitely allow you to keep the stance pressure up without being in danger, and the axe is definitely good for doing damage, especially because I was only really using the R1 and it still worked. Rykard. There isn't much to say about this boss. I used Serpent Hunter, Sumi, and it went pretty much business as usual. I rolled poorly sometimes, I hit him other times, and then, at the end of the day, I won. Rykard is one of those bosses that I'd rather not fight, as the health pool he has makes it very hard for a normal player to beat him with anything other than Serpent Hunter or Black Flame. But, seeing as he's a remembrance boss, it had to be done. However, I'm pretty sure you can go to any Elden Ring YouTuber's channel who does not so serious runs and watch the exact same fight of Rykard, so I 2 times the fight. Enjoy. Landing the Ash of War on this boss fight is not easy. Because of the amount of weapons that Margit uses in this fight, it can be kind of difficult to hit him if you are facing his front. But once you land that Ash of War, it hurts so bad that it actually knocked him out of the sword attack that he does partway through. Then he does his little vomit in second phase. That boosts your lightning damage, which means that in second phase, every attack that you do chunks his health. This is an extremely easy fight. It's like, Furumazula is like just entirely... If this breaks my game, I'm gonna be so mad. Oh my god. Oh my god. So, this was probably not the next fight you were expecting. However, there apparently has been a glitch since the game's release, in which, after going to a New Game Plus cycle, if you have beaten Placidusax, you can potentially just have the Arena Site of Grace not deleted from your map. I don't know what you have to do to have this glitch happen, nor has it ever happened to me before, but if you hate the run back to Placidusax Arena, just do the glitch. Either way, Placidusax was one of the first bosses that actually gave me a bit of trouble in this run. Not only does he have 40 lightning resist, but the long path axe does standard damage, which is one of the physical damage types that he is more resistant to at 35. I wasn't really able to do any of the pre-fighting buff that I think I would have done because of the poor type matching for this boss, because of where I spawned in. All things considered, Placidusax was not too terrible. While it did feel like I was chipping away at his health bar at times, just being able to use both long-range and short-range attacks definitely allowed me to overcome some of the issues that came with the poor type matching in this fight. In addition, Despite the fact that I am usually a light roll player, the medium roll was acceptable, even if it did cause me to die a couple of times during the laser attack. It's just something that you'll kind of have to get used to. The Fire Giant was almost laughably easy in this run. He sports a resistance of 0 for both standard physical damage and lightning damage, meaning this build is a great choice for people who want to try a run without status effects. Buffing at the beginning of the fight with Golden Vow and Black Flame's protection gave me added damage and protection, meaning I was chunking his health bar. If you reapply Golden Vow at the phase change as well, you'll be meting out damage faster than he can roll away from you. All in all, this was probably one of the more painless Fire Giant fights I've had, which is definitely a breath of fresh air, seeing as the Fire Giant is one of the more disliked bosses, both by myself and the larger community. At this point in the base game, however, we're going to start seeing larger health bars, which we will have to cut through without status effects. I'm a bleed build enjoyer and a colossal weapon enjoyer, so not being able to take massive chunks with bleed or endure plus the giant's pressure means this is the point where skill is really going to start showing on a build like this. Don't worry about the fact that I start dying way more after this fight. Uh-oh. I did terribly on this boss fight. By all measures, I should have had an amazing first try win. Malekith has a small health pool compared to most endgame bosses. My attacks were doing amazing damage, and if necessary, I could continue doing damage from a safe distance using Nice Lightning Spear. However, I let greed get the best of me, and I was dying over and over. As you can see, the first phase was negligible. With a couple Knight's Lightning Spears and some well-placed swings of the axe, it was over pretty much within 30 seconds, and that held true for each attempt. One thing to note, however, is that while this build does come with a full suit of armor, it is not Volgoods or Verdigris. With that in mind, you do need to keep more of an eye on your health if you're getting hit than I did, for sure. All things considered, Malekith is comparatively neutral to both standard with 35 resistance and lightning with 40 resistance, meaning that despite my own struggles with this boss fight, if you're better than the 27% who didn't beat Margit, you shouldn't have too much difficulty. I'm doing so good, and then I just walk into these attacks. Alright, now, perfect. Gideon is an easy boss to beat with this build. If you're capable of not spamming the light attack, unlike me, you can continuously roll catch him and stagger him out of any attacks he might try with just the light attack on the axe, which still does good damage. In addition, if you summon and don't want to deal with any of his attacks, staying back and hitting him over and over again with a lightning spear while the summon lays down melee damage is a great method of dealing with him. Gideon is my least favorite boss of all time, which may sound surprising, but if you've never had any issues with him, I challenge you to do a run with any weapon that doesn't kill him in approximately 5 hits. It is the absolute worst. Moog is a wonderful boss to really play around with the long and short range aspects of this build, especially as he enters phase 2 and starts throwing around flaming blood like it's his job. Staying back is sometimes necessary. One thing that I've noticed during this run is that the surrounding lightning, summoned during the Knight's Lightning Spear, has a further range than the in-hand bolt. That means that you can eke out a little more range than you might be used to if you're a regular Lightning Spear user. Other than that, business as usual with Moog, in that I died from the usual unprovable controller failure excuses that might be backed up more by the fact that I did have to replace my controller after this run. I always thought it was funny that everyone on the internet rushed to disavow Moog for being creepy towards Mikola, but there's a massive subset of people who watch shows with characters that appear to be younger, but their interest in those characters is fine, because they're actually super old, they just look like that. If Where's My Hug at Moog is creepy to you, but liking a 300-year-old anime girl that looks way younger than any adult has any right to look isn't, there might be some soul searching you need to do. But I guess that's none of my business. Melania sports an equal amount of resistance to all types of physical damage at 10, meaning our axe literally cannot be bad. In addition, Melania's lightning damage is the second worst resistance Melania has, with 20 out of the puddle and 10 in it. That means we're doing some of the highest damage we have done so far in this run, especially if we keep her on the water. Furthermore, due to the weight of the axe, we're staggering her with each hit, allowing for consistent chain attacks that really eat her health down. The only thing to really watch out for is a super armor attack she tends to deploy partway through any combo you can throw at her, and, of course, waterfowl. If you're absolutely terrible at predicting and dodging waterfowl, throwing a summon at her and shooting her with a lightning spear is a great option, especially due to the fact that the in-hand spear and surrounding spears fire off at different times, meaning that between the two separate attacks, and whatever your summon is doing, she's guaranteed to get hit. As you enter second phase, you'll be able to deal 2 free, fully charged casts of the lightning spears to knock some extra health off of her health pool before she comes out of the Aeonia, and a running Ash of War will close the distance and stagger her reliably each time. Overall, the fight was pretty fun and easy. As an aside, does anyone else feel both robbed and incredibly blessed that Miyazaki didn't choose Melania as Mikola's consort in the DLC? Like, for sure it makes way more sense, and it would be super cool, but I do not think my heart could have handled Melania cranked up to 1,000 like that. The Ancestral Spirit was never a hard boss fight, just annoying. So there isn't really much to say about this fight. With a whopping 0 resistance to both standard and lightning damage, this fight is kind of a breeze. Whether you want to capitalize on his primarily slow movements with long-range incantations, or take advantage of the length of the axe to basically never miss a hit despite the weird lock-on, you shouldn't face much of an issue in this fight. It's kind of disappointing, honestly, how mid these fights are, seeing as the musical score is such an amazing breach from the usual Soulsborne tracks, as is the setting. I wish they had come up with something cooler, which is rich coming from somebody who did not help in the production of this game at all, but it's true. I'm nervous that in future installations they might cut content like this because it wasn't received well, but I think with a little more refinement, this could be an amazing new genre of bosses in the series. Lich Dragon Fortisax is a surprisingly easy fight. While his standard physical damage resistance is pretty average at 35, his lightning resistance clocks in at a whopping 80, which should have made this fight one of the most difficult fights damage-wise in the game. However, Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, buffed by a Golden Vow, took a huge chunk of his health bar, with only 2 bringing him to half health. After that, it was pretty smooth sailing, especially since the damage of even just the lightning spears was nothing to balk at. At the end of the fight, I had barely swung my axe 1 time, instead relying pretty heavily on my incantations, and they did the job despite his massive resistance to lightning. I would actually say I preferred using the incantations over the axe in this fight due to the fact that the Ancient Dragon lock-on is extremely annoying. And with my incantations doing the same or more damage than the axe, and with a much higher rate of actually hitting, especially his head, I can't be upset. At the end of the day, Fortisax was one of the easier bosses I fought this whole run. Estelle is a pretty neutral boss when it comes to typing. It has equal resistance to all types of both physical and elemental damage. This means that we enter the fight with a big incentive to keep it on the puddle and a decent amount of apprehension. I'm not the best at fighting Estelle, as I primarily play melee builds in my free time. However, just like with Fortisax, incantations actually won in this fight. Being able to reliably hit its head while doing a pretty nice piece of damage, especially with Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, was very nice. The fight had its usual difficulties with Estelle moving around a lot, but outside of that, it was pretty easy. Golden Vow and Ancient Dragon ate its health away, and Lightning Spear was an amazing attack for after it teleports or when it uses an attack that forces space. Is it just me, or is anyone else wondering why the alien is in a cave at the bowels of the earth? Is it a Balrog type thing where they dug too deep and too greedily? Or did Ronnie put this alien in charge of guarding the gates of the Moonlight Altar like Cerberus? I mean, out of all the questions players have asked, I feel like I've never seen anyone wonder why this little space bug is chilling like right above bedrock. Godfrey is one of my personal favorite boss fights in this game, and prior to Baal, probably my all-time favorite boss fight. Not to fangirl or anything, but looking at the attention to detail that was put into the musculature of Hoarolu's attacks, especially his earth-shattering attack, is absolutely amazing to me. I'm an artist in my free time, and studying musculature is important for drawing a good person, and I can absolutely tell you that the designers of Hoarolu knew exactly what they were doing. Even with some of his exaggerated attacks, like his guillotine kick, where his leg bends a little past what should be normal, the design still exemplifies the motion and physicality of the boss fight, and fits perfectly into the believability that would come with somebody who literally killed their way to the top. As Godfrey, his attacks may be predictable, but they're executed beautifully and flow from combo to heavy to combo. The only thing I think they could have done to make Godfrey's phase cooler is to have added Sharash attacking. Even without that, I truly love the design of this boss, and am amazed with how simultaneously graceful and powerful they make Godfrey, and it really shows how much they loved making him. In terms of the build, Godfrey sports 10 standard physical resistance and 0 lightning resistance, which makes his build just a little bit over average. If you're not married to the concept of using the long half-axe, switching to a piercing weapon with lightning infusion would give you the best resistance-based build. As usual, the lightning spear does a wonderful amount of damage for when spacing allows, and the axe's light attack fits perfectly into his shorter spacings, usually scoring a stance break right around the phase transition. For second phase, the fight continues pretty much as usual. Hoarolu doesn't give many openings for the time it takes to cast, especially if you don't summon, but the tried and true method of hitting with an axe will get you to the finish line no matter how few Knight's Lightning Spears you can cast.
Oh, okay. I guess that just doesn't like work out. If you're too close to him.
Whatever. Radagon is a boss fight I genuinely enjoy. After fighting bosses throughout the whole game that don't really interact with your movement, Radagon forces you to actually learn the timings of his moves and dodge them, because he will follow you. However, once you do figure them out, even if you aren't perfect, it becomes kind of rote. The Elden Beast is different, mainly because the boss fight is so mind-numbing that it's surprisingly easy to die to, in my opinion. I get annoyed that he keeps running away, and then I lose track of my stamina and my ability to press the dodge button, and all of a sudden, I'm dead. Build-wise, Radagon sports a pretty average standard resistance of 35 and only 20 resistance to lightning damage, which puts us in a good place for meting out damage. With his predictable long pauses after several of his attacks, hitting a fully charged heavy pushes him to a stance break pretty quickly. As for the Elden Beast, it has 10 resistance to standard damage and 40 to every type of affinity, save holy. However, the Elden Beast is also in water. Applying Golden Bow directly after Radagon dies, running straight into the Elven Beast's tummy, and casting Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike is a tale as old as time, and that's because it works. Kicking off the fight with that, running around his fire attack, and laying some heavies into his tail is a perfect method for taking on the Elven Beast, and that's honestly enough said about this boss fight.
Alright. Yeah, definitely was running away when
The Divine Beast Dancing Lion is not a good boss fight for this build if you're looking purely at damage negation, with one of its highest physical negations being standard at 30 and similarly high lightning negation of 40. This boss should be difficult. Thankfully, it's the first boss in the DLC, meaning that its health is comparatively pitiful, and I exploited that as much as possible by hitting him with my attacks. Overall, the Dancing Lion was a fun boss fight, but not a hard boss fight for this build. With a continuous output of both light attacks and lightning spears, I was able to get one stance break off through the whole fight. Starting off this run with 18 Shady Tree Fragments, I definitely think this build is not for people who want to do a quick, high damage run on the Dancing Lion. As you can see, I'm chipping away at his health bar piece by piece. If you're new to the DLC, I'd definitely choose a heavier weapon, a status effect, or at least not something with his two highest negations.
Perfect. No one's actually being able to hit them. Yeah, I feel like it is definitely true. Oh? Honestly, kind of bad that I did not get hit by that. Right now. Yeah, the roll time on that just didn't work out, you know? Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing. Did not use to switch my... Is that a grab? I did not know the Dancing Lion had a grab. Beautiful. That's cool. Definitely didn't know that there was a grab attack. But you know what?
Pontiff Sullivan. Rolana. She's a great boss fight. Rolana is a perfect blend between calling back to an amazing boss in Dark Souls 3 and tying another area of the DLC into the main game, and I think she serves as a great gateway into the DLC, even more than the Dancing Lion. Rolana is hard. She incorporates the long and quick combos with relatively short cooldowns that Melania has, and the player following attacks that Radagon has for his hammer slings. She has a resistance of 20 to standard damage and a beautiful 0 to lightning. Adding to her already low lightning resistance is the pool in the middle of the arena. Better players than I will benefit from keeping her inside of this pool for the duration of the boss fight for the extra damage. As you can see, I'm cutting through her health pretty rapidly. Regardless of skill, using the Death Knight build with a decent amount of levels and 18 plus Shaded Tree Fragments is pretty much a guaranteed win, especially if you have a good amount of armor on, which this build requires.
I don't know why I did that, but I did not realize that that was not a arena covering attack.
Mesmer is a difficult boss, and if you're like me, who has never fought him with anything slower than the backhand blades, this fight can be kinda difficult. Once you get the hang of the slower attacks that this build requires, you'll come to appreciate the 20 resistance he has to both standard physical damage and lightning damage. This build is kind of middle of the road in terms of damage negations for Mesmer, as we're not doing slash damage, nor are we doing holy damage in phase 2. However, once I got the hang of using a medium load roll and medium weight weapon, Mesmer fell without too much skin off my back. Mesmer as a boss is very interesting. Most of his attacks require you to completely forget the option of rolling away, and just serves as another example of the DLC bosses really forcing you to actually learn how to fight and defend yourself from them. Perhaps Light Roll protected me from getting to know Mesmer's moveset as much as I really should have, or my timings were off due to the different iframes. But either way, I definitely struggled here more than I really should have, and that's not to say the build itself was bad. If you're not a fan of switching in between affinities halfway through a fight, this could be a pretty good build to try out.
Whatever. Beautiful. Oh, off rip? That's crazy word. At least I didn't die.
The Putrescent Knight is a weird boss, and I don't know if I like it or not. First of all, his head shouldn't look like that. I know a lot of people are speculating that it might be Radon, and Alexander ate Radon's head, therefore leaving behind the weird little black-purple thing that has white eyes we see in the fight, but I think it just looks a little strange. Additionally, the timings for this boss are not at all the same as most other bosses, so roll timings you might think would work absolutely do not. Seeing as it's a later stage boss as well, the damage for making these mistakes is extremely painful. After I acclimated to more of his roll times in my light load backhand blade build, I was knocking him out reliably with little issue. Moving into this build, I did beat him second try. I definitely saw more difficulty throughout the fight. In terms of the build, the Putrescent Knight only negates 20% of standard damage and lightning by 0, so you can definitely get a good amount of damage fighting with this build. Once you can reliably dodge his opening attack, closing in and dealing a good chunk of damage with the Ash of War is a surefire way to start this fight. Additionally, anytime he whips the same attack out again, you can go back to the tried and true Ash of War to close the distance and mete out damage. Anytime it moves away from you to do some weapon throwing or charge attack, you can usually get a lightning spear in to knock more health off, and hitting him with the axe will never not work. Mattia is one of my favorite bosses in this game. From her second phase audio being the first recorded sound of the black hole to the absolute weird and cool design for the actual boss and arena, I can't help but like her. I know there are definitely some annoying moves in this fight, like her undodgeable laser move she does in phase 2, but overall, the fight seems to be a really good combination of fight and cinematography. Surprisingly, this fight was insanely easy for this build. I was stance breaking her left and right, as well as cutting chunks of her health off her health pool with almost every single attack. This was a first try I was definitely surprised by, even if the fight does take place in water. Mattia is weak to neither standard nor lightning, with 20 and 40 resistances respectively, which definitely surprised me to find out after witnessing the absolute powerhouse this build was in this fight. I will definitely recommend the Death Knight to anyone struggling with Mattia, especially seeing as the Ash of War can get you to her or further from her than just rolling, while still immune to any damage if necessary. Gaius is a fun boss. With his super hard to dodge charge attack, sudden target shifting, and quick, hard to anticipate moves, Gaius is a real treat. I stance broke him into second phase in this fight, and was meting out pretty good damage despite his absolute insistence to hit me with his gravity orb attack. Gaius is weakest to standard damage at 20 and has 0 resistance to lightning, further proving that lightning damage is probably the second best genre of incantations beneath Black Flame. There isn't much to say about this boss. The Death Knight build will definitely help you if you're struggling, as it's almost the perfect build for this boss, but it will not win the fight for you.
Well, no, it's not. Oh, nice. Will not complain about a free attack. That one is kind of hard to dodge. The awful attack. Yeah, I was not lined up for that for sure. Oh my god, again? Whatever. Oh, perfect. Dang, that was not hard.
Everyone's favorite sunflower. While I'm not usually an enjoyer of Plants vs. Zombies, I feel like we should definitely take into account this plant's strong conviction to really fend off the garden from somebody who just keeps on coming back from the dead. Though I don't like to think of my character as a zombie, it's not too far from the truth. I will keep it completely honest with you. If you aren't cosplaying a Death Knight throughout a whole run like I just did, go find the Fire Perfume bottle, level it to plus 25, and hit this overgrown plant in the face until it dies. While this build isn't bad, the avatar has negative 40 resistance to fire, which is the absolute lowest resistance in pretty much the whole game. As for the Death Knight, we have 20 resistance in both standard and lightning, meaning we are way underpowered compared to a couple bottles of powder. But I guess I don't make the rules. I definitely am not used to fighting this boss with anything other than Fire Perfume bottles, but I will say this build does decent damage to the avatar. It's not perfect, and if you plan on using the incantations, you'll definitely need to sacrifice more flasks for the cause than any boss previously due to the 3 phases, but it's definitely doable.
Alright, I think if I am careful, we could do it. Ouch. Oh, wait. You gotta give me a sec. Ooh! Will it hit? Will it hit? Awesome. Ow. Yeah, it's just definitely...
Romina sports a pretty middle-of-the-road resistance for this build, with 20 negation for both standard and lightning. The Ash of War on the long-haft axe is excellent for dodging her sweeping attacks that she often employs and punishing her for them. While she's in the air, an uncharged lightning spear can keep the stance pressure up and the damage continuous. Romina is a pretty fun boss, and it's a good fight for this build, as it definitely requires skill, but it isn't possible by any standard. So, I was about to go on this whole spiel about how I thought there was a glitch in Romina's fight, in which an attack that is meant to instantly apply the rot effect can actually cure you if you're already afflicted with rot. When my husband informed me, their Omina actually has the Poison Flower Bloom's Choice as an attack that she does. And I'm simply not smart enough to put 2 and 2 together, even though my first playthrough of the DLC was with Poison Dryleaf Arts with the Ash of War. So, long story short, Miyazaki is perfect and knows all things and can never be wrong, and I was foolish for ever doubting him.
Because I definitely, like, really enjoy this boss fight, but, like, it gets, like, kind of, like, really obnoxious to, like, actually, like, hit her, because she be moving around rapidly. Aww. Breathe. Beautiful.
Everyone's least favorite boss fight in the DLC, Letta and Co. When I was watching the DLC trailers, I was expecting another Star Scourge Radahn style fight, where myself and the NPCs in this boss fight all work together to take down the big bad. Obviously, with the storyline they came up with for the DLC, it couldn't really work out that way. But I definitely think it would have been super cool as a callback to the original Radahn fight to have a bunch of summons inside the arena for all of the NPCs you find throughout the story, especially seeing as Consort Radahn is as hard as he is. I won't waste too much breath talking about this fight. Letta is a character I'm kind of sad about in terms of how she ended up being portrayed, and the other NPCs either didn't have much questline, like Dane, or were easily hateable, like the Horn Sun. At the end of the day, each NPC you fight here will have different resistances, so the build doesn't matter too much in terms of being better or worse than others. With the Death Knight build, I'm reliably stunning NPCs when I hit them, the axe does decent damage, and the incantations allow me to hit them from afar while still doing good damage.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't entirely know how to do that dodge, but it didn't matter at the end of the day.
Radahn is one of my least favorite fights in the Soulsborne series. It feels like Miyazaki watched Gino Machino, Scumnut, and a couple other Elden Ring YouTubers and decided that their skill level was every Elden Ring player's skill level. While I enjoy a challenging boss fight for sure, Radahn is different. I was able to fight Melania for 8 hours the first time I played this game and not be mad at it because most of the mistakes were my own skill issues. Fellow YouTuber The Kev Dev has shown that Radahn's hitboxes are artificially enhanced past where his sword ends, from going past the tip of his sword to all the way up his shoulders and floating a little bit past each side of his sword. Additionally, most boss flows allow for at least 3 hits after each of their combos, or a fully charged heavy. Not pre-patch Radahn. Not only did he immediately attack as soon as you enter the arena, there was, if I remember correctly, only one attack in his repertoire that allowed for anything more than 2 light attacks at best. Now, Radahn is way easier post-patch, and I think my issues are mainly skill related at this point, but I definitely remember fighting pre-patch Radahn and having absolutely no fun while doing it. This build is not good resistance-wise for Radahn. With a damage negation of 40 for both standard physical damage and lightning damage throughout Phase 1 and 2, there is no added benefit for using this build over any other option. Additionally, this build doesn't offer any kind of status effect or chunk options. I would strongly recommend using a bleed, rot, or poison build for this fight if you aren't willing to carve a marble statue with the amount of chips you will have to take off of his health bar with this build. Additionally, if you're unwilling to summon, the incantations are pretty much off the table, with the exception of when he creates the distance himself. At the end of the day, Radahn is a much easier boss fight now than he was when the DLC first came out, but he still is probably the hardest boss fight in the game. Despite his decrease in difficulty, his health pool still sits at a whopping 46,134, and you will have to cut each and every point of that off with the axe. If you're unwilling to do so, this build is not for you. I definitely enjoyed using this build as a mile marker to test his change in difficulty between patches, and it is a fun build to use, especially if you use a summon, as getting behind him and using the Ash of War is a really nice method of cutting down his health bar, as is using the Lightning Spear incantation from afar.
Well. Oh, yeah, this is beautiful. Okay, come on, come on, come on. All we gotta do is survive. I'm gonna drink this just in case. I don't know where he is. I see you! I knew that was gonna be some... Oh no, oh no. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yes! Greed always works. Greed always works.
Bale is my all-time favorite boss, and you can fight me on that. I strongly believe every single dragon boss fight in this game has been slowly leading up to Bale's fight. When they made Placidusax, they were still learning how to make a dragon that is extremely mobile and capable of utilizing layers of attacks, and Bale is the final product. The combination of cinematography and functionality in this boss fight is, in my opinion, perfect. The one-time hit fire that won't stun lock you to death if you get caught in it, the seamless switch between targets, and just the absolute amazing imagery for his phase transition and magical attacks is just so awesome, and I really cannot help but love this boss fight. And then you have Egon, whose questline and voice acting is absolutely superb. Altogether, I think this boss is amazing. And has a resistance of 35 to standard physical damage and 40 to lightning damage. Surprisingly, that isn't higher than any of his other affinity negations, so other than the fact that a piercing weapon would be better, we actually have a pretty good chance for decent damage, despite the fact that Bale is a lightning dragon, so you'd think the lightning wouldn't be as good against him. Throughout this fight, with Golden Bow as a buff, we are consistently doing very good damage with every attack at our disposal. I will caution that the use of ranged incantations in the fight is hit or miss, mainly due to the fact that Bale is very mobile and can quickly move out of range, even if he was right next to you when you started casting. At the end of the day, whether you use incantations or not, this fight shouldn't be too difficult, especially if you're sporting a high Shaded Tree fragment count and a good amount of levels.
Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Ooh, he's hitting me.
With a hail of harpoons.
Yeah. I did that kind of poorly, not gonna lie. Definitely was nervous that I wasn't gonna hit that one. That last dodge. Ow. Don't know what I was thinking there. Ouch. Oh, he's doing it again. Aw, shucks. Oh well, at least we do this. Oh, huh. That works at the end of the day.
This run went surprisingly well. Even against many bosses that should have been resisting a lot of our damage, we were doing very well. And if you're willing to buff with Golden Bow and Black Flame's protection, you'll be doing even better. Additionally, Nice Lightning Spear is an amazing incantation. Its stance damage alone justifies leveling Faith to use it, and at that point, you might as well also get Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, which absolutely destroys big bosses' health bars. While we were doing some variable damage with the axe itself, The Ash of War granted an amazing amount of mobility, and I don't think I ever really capitalized on everything you can do with it. While this build might not be the end-all be-all easy mode build, it definitely is a great middle-of-the-road option for people looking to spice up their playthroughs. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for being here. I stream pretty regularly, and I will be making a video for each run that I do, so I hope to see you next time.